Ever been right in the middle of something important on your computer?
Uh,
Maybe submitting taxes online or moving money between accounts,
yeah.
and then suddenly the app just freezes, or maybe throws up some weird error message, or just poof, disappears.
Oh, yeah, that digital hiccup.
Yeah,
Super frustrating.
exactly. It's like hitting a completely unexpected roadblock. So today, we're doing a deep dive into how software developers, especially those using Java, build programs to handle those moments gracefully.
Right.
It's kind of the hidden foundation that stops your apps from just vanishing, helps them adapt, maybe even recover.
That's a great way to put it. Our mission today, using our source material on Java exception handling, is really to unpack those critical bits, the mechanics that keep apps robust, stable, and actually pretty user-friendly, even when, well, things go wrong, which they do.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of this, you, the listener, should get a much better sense of how your favorite apps manage to survive all that digital chaos. And maybe why this techie-sounding concept is actually crucial for trust and stability in everything we do online.
Okay, so we've set the stage for why this is so important. But to really get it, we need to understand the what. So, expert, what is exception handling in Java fundamentally? Can you give us the baseline definition?
Absolutely. So at its heart, Java exception handling is a structured way to detect, respond to, and ideally recover from errors that pop up while a program is running.
Runtime errors, right?
Exactly. Runtime errors, we call them exceptions. Think of an exception as just an event, something abnormal that disrupts the normal flow of the program.
Like what, for example?
Well, our source material gives some good ones, like trying to divide a number by zero. Mathematically impossible, right? The computer just can't do it.
Right.
Or maybe your program tries to open a file, but that file just isn't there. It doesn't exist on your machine. That's another exception.
Right.
Now, Java's pretty organized about this. It puts all these potential issues into a hierarchy. The big boss at the top is called throwable.
Throwable.
Yep. And under throwable, there are two main kinds. First, you've got errors. Now, these are the really serious ones, often things the program itself can't fix, like the whole system running out of memory.
Yikes.
Yeah. Developers usually don't try to catch these errors in their application code because it signals a much bigger problem. But then you have exceptions. And these are the ones we really focus on today.
Okay.
These are typically recoverable issues. Things like maybe the user typed in something invalid, or a network connection timed out, or that file we mentioned was missing.
Mm-hmm.
These are things developers can anticipate, and they should manage them in the code.
Right. So exceptions are the manageable ones. Does Java break those down further, like different types of exceptions that tell the developer how to deal with them?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
There are two really important subtypes of exceptions. First up, checked exceptions.
Check.
Checked, meaning Java literally checks for them when the code is compiled. That's before the program even runs, when the human-readable code gets turned into machine instructions. So if your code does something that might cause a checked exception, like dealing with files or network connections, Java forces the developer to say, okay, I know this might happen, and here's how I'll handle it.
So it makes them deal with it up front.
Exactly. You literally can't compile your code if you ignore a potential checked exception.
Oh.
Java makes you acknowledge it. Things like trying to open a file that's maybe locked by another program, or losing your internet connection while trying to download something.
That's fascinating. So Java is basically saying, hey, developer, think about this potential problem now.
Precisely. And, this whole checked versus unchecked thing, it's actually a big discussion point in the Java world.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Checked exceptions force that upfront thinking, which many argue makes software much more robust. It's Java's way of saying, plan for failure before it happens in the real world.
Makes sense.
But others find it adds, well, extra code, maybe unnecessary complexity sometimes. It's a design trade-off.
Interesting trade-off. Okay, so if those are checked exceptions, what's the other kind? The one that's not checked at compile time.
Right, those are unchecked exceptions, sometimes called runtime exceptions. These typically happen during runtime, and the compiler doesn't force you to handle them explicitly.
Why not?
Well, often they point to actual programming mistakes, bugs, really. The classic example is trying to access, say, the 10th item in a list that only has 5 items.
Ah, like asking for something that just isn't there because the logic's flawed.
Exactly. You're trying to do something that just shouldn't happen if the code were perfect.
Uh,
So the idea is you should fix the bug rather than just trying to catch the exception everywhere.
Gotcha.
But ultimately, the goal for all of this, checked or unchecked, is that when something unexpected does happen, the program doesn't just crash and burn. It can either fix the problem or at least fail gracefully Give the user some useful feedback instead of just disappearing.
Okay, understanding the types is one thing, but the really cool part is how developers actually implement this. How do they build the safety net? Walk us through the tools they use. Where do they even start?
Great question. It starts with analyzing the code. Developers look closely at parts that are known to be, well, a bit risky.
Risky how?
Operations like reading files, connecting to external services like databases, or even just processing input someone types in. Let's go back to your tax example.
Okay.
The bit of code that actually sends your tax data over the internet, that's a prime candidate for an exception. Your internet could drop, the government server could be busy, lots of things.
Right.
So once they identify these spots, Java gives them specific building blocks. The main one is the try block. You wrap the risky code, like that network call, to send taxes inside a try block.
Okay, so try means this might go wrong.
Exactly. And if something does go wrong inside that try block, if an exception occurs, maybe the internet drops, like we said, the program immediately jumps out of the try block and looks for a catch block.
Like catching the error.
Precisely. The catch block is where you define how to handle a specific type of exception. This is where the developer can say, log the error so they can debug it later. Or show you a friendly message, oops, connection lost, please try again.
So it doesn't just die.
Right. Or might even try to recover. Maybe save your tax form progress locally so you don't lose everything.
Okay, try and catch.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes, there's one more really important piece. The finally block.
Finally.
The code inside this block is special because it always runs. Always. Doesn't matter if an exception happened in the try block, or if it completed successfully, or even if it was caught by catchbot, the finally block executes no matter what.
Why is that so important?
Think about resources. If your tax program opened a temporary file to store data before sending, you need to make sure that file gets closed properly, right? Otherwise, you could have resource leaks. The program holds on to things it doesn't need, which can slow down the system or even crash it eventually.
Okay. So finally is for cleanup.
Exactly. Guaranteed cleanup. It's absolutely crucial for keeping things stable. And beyond those blocks, there are two other key statements. There's the throw statement. This lets a developer manually trigger an exception.
Wait, why would they want to cause an error?
Well, imagine you entered your social security number incorrectly on that tax form. The program could check it, see it's invalid, and throw a specific invalid input exception right there before it even tries to send bad data. It signals a problem based on the application's own rules.
Got it. Makes sense. And the other one?
The other is the throws clause. This is used in a method's definition. It basically declares, hey, just so you know, this method might throw these specific types of checked exceptions.
Like a warning sign.
Exactly. It alerts any other piece of code that calls this method that they need to be prepared to handle those potential exceptions, maybe with their own try-catch blocks.
Wow, okay. That's quite a toolkit developers have. But is it just about using these try, catch, finally things? Are there like best practices or philosophies they follow to make sure it actually works well?
Oh, absolutely. It's not random. Good developers follow established practices. For instance, when catching exceptions, they usually catch the most specific type of exception first.
Why specific?
Because you want to handle known problems precisely. Only if those specific catches don't match would you maybe fall back to catching a more general type of exception. It prevents accidentally hiding or mishandling an error you could have dealt with better.
Okay.
And modern Java has really neat ways to handle resources automatically, like files or database connections. There's something called try with resources that guarantees resources get closed, even if exceptions happen, making that finally block cleanup even easier and less error-prone. Prevents those nasty resource leaks we talked about.
That sounds useful. What about really big, complex applications? Do they ever need their own types of errors?
Great point. Yes, absolutely. Developers often create custom exceptions. They define their own exception classes that represent very specific error conditions unique to their application or business rules. Maybe an insufficient funds exception in a banking app, or an inventory unavailable exception in e-commerce. It makes the error handling much clearer and more tailored, and overarching best practices. Definitely logging errors thoroughly. You want detailed logs, often including something called a stack trace. Yeah, it's like a roadmap showing exactly which sequence of method calls led up to the error. Invaluable for debugging. Also, giving users helpful, friendly messages, not cryptic codes. And avoiding catching overly broad exceptions, like just catch exception E, because that can mask problems you should know about. Sometimes the right thing is not to handle an exception locally, but to let it propagate or bubble up to a higher level component that might know how to deal with it better.
Right, right. So it's quite nuanced. Okay, let's bring this back to the listener. What does all this behind the scenes work actually mean for you? Why is this exception handling stuff so crucial for the software you rely on every single day? Expert, what are the most direct benefits?
Well, fundamentally, it's about reliability and just a better user experience.
Mm.
Number one, it stops programs from just crashing unexpectedly.
Which is huge.
Huge. Instead of just dying, the program can either keep going, maybe after fixing the issue, or it can fail gracefully. It can tell you what went wrong. Think about that tax app again, crashing silently versus saying, hey, your internet dropped. Check your connection and try again. Big difference.
Massive difference. One is
Right?
a mystery, the other is actionable. It builds trust, I think.
Exactly. It turns frustration into a potentially solvable problem. And it makes the program itself more robust. It can actually recover from some errors, like maybe retrying that network request automatically if your Wi-Fi blipped out for a second.
Ah, so it can try again on its own?
Sometimes, yeah. Or maybe switch to a backup data source if the primary one is down. It helps maintain functionality even when things aren't perfect.
And what about for the developers building this stuff? Does it make their lives easier too?
Definitely. It really improves maintainability. By separating the error handling logic, the try-catch stuff, from the main business logic, the code becomes way cleaner. Easier to read, easier to understand, easier to debug, especially on big projects with lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that resource management we keep mentioning, making sure files and connections are closed properly. Exception handling, especially with try with resources, is key to preventing those leaks that can slowly kill performance over time. Plus, good logging, those stack traces, they make finding and fixing bugs so much faster for developers.
Okay, so it's good for users, good for developers. What about the bigger picture, like systems in 2025?
Yeah, connecting it to the bigger picture, especially now, exception handling is absolutely foundational for reliable, secure, scalable systems. Think about modern software microservices talking to each other, huge enterprise systems.
Mm.
They live in really unpredictable environments,
Constantly changing, right?
constantly changing, network calls failing, services being temporarily unavailable, weird user input. Exception handling is what lets these complex systems stay stable amidst all that chaos. And think about concurrency. Lots of things happening at once. Multi-threaded apps, distributed systems. If one part, one thread fails, good exception handling prevents it from taking down the whole system. That's critical for scalability, especially for cloud-based applications.
Okay, stability, scalability. Yeah.
Security, this is a big one. If an exception isn't handled properly, it might accidentally leak sensitive information, like internal system details or even user data in an error message or a stack trace shown to the wrong person.
Oh, wow, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. Proper handling hides those implementation details and can prevent certain types of attacks.
Yeah.
I actually remember early in my career, I missed closing a file properly and it finally blocked on a server. It seemed minor.
Yeah.
But over several hours, the server just slowly ground to a halt, ran out of resources. That's when you really learn that this stuff isn't just theoretical. It's about keeping the lights on.
That's a great example. So it's not just user errors we see, but the actual health of the whole system depends on this.
Precisely. And that ties into user trust again. Apps that handle errors smoothly, give clear feedback, let you recover, you trust them more. That's vital for e-commerce, banking, anywhere. Reliability matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's compliance. Industries like finance, healthcare, they often have strict regulations, robust error handling, detailed logging, ensuring data integrity, proving you can recover from failures. It's often a requirement.
Right.
And finally, Java itself keeps evolving. Things like improved resource management, better ways to handle errors in asynchronous code.
Yeah.
It all supports modern development needs like reactive programming, where managing streams of events and potential errors is just part of the game.
So we've really covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? From figuring out what an exception even is,
Yeah.
to how developers wrestle with them using tools like try, catch, and finally, and then really seeing why this whole process, which mostly happens behind the curtain, is so fundamental. Fundamental to the reliability, the user-friendliness, pretty much all the software you interact with constantly.
Yeah, it's definitely clear it's not just some minor technical detail. It's really a core pillar. Building secure, scalable, resilient applications apps that meet your expectations and industry standards, it hinges on good exception handling. It's what makes software truly robust,
Absolutely. So maybe next time an app does glitch out on you, or even crash, Just take a second. Think
Yeah.
about what might have gone wrong under the hood and think about all the complex work that goes into making sure that doesn't happen most of the time. And here's a thought to leave you with. What could be the real cost, the hidden impact of not handling exceptions well? Not just in your tax app, but in something truly critical. Imagine an air traffic control system maybe, or software running medical equipment in a hospital. What happens when those systems just go poof? Something to think about.